Hey, supply chainers, wherever you are in the world, this is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everybody, and happy Tuesday. It is time for Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended podcast, and also the Blended Pledge. And we have a really fun episode for you today, or show for you today. I've got Audrey Ross with me today. We're going to talk all about our adventures from last week. But before we do that, we do need to talk about our sponsors. So we just heard from Fastenal and how they're helping everybody in their supply chains. And now Emerge is proud to partner with Thoughts and Coffee to elevate our combined focus on empowering and growing meaningful relationships in the freight industry. The first and only freight-specific RFP platform, Emerge is reinventing freight procurement by offering solutions that enhance the spot and contract procurement process, enabling shippers to make the most strategic decisions possible, saving invaluable time and enhancing productivity. Learn more at emergemarket.com/thoughts and coffee. Well, super excited to be here with you today. We've got lots going on. We're also going to be talking about so many updates when it comes to freight, ocean freight, air freight. There's so much going on right now. It's peak season. I was on BBC last week talking about this very subject. So everybody is wondering how those supply chain disruptions are going to affect what we are doing in supply chains. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. First, though, I do want to talk about our brand new episode. So we release an episode of Let's Talk Supply Chain every single Monday morning. And yesterday, we released this episode with Cavallo, and it's talking about rethinking distribution. They're on a mission to drive efficiency in every stage of the distribution process. And I had a really great conversation, sort of diving deep into distribution, what they're doing, how they're helping their customers. So you can listen over wherever you subscribe to the podcast. You can go and check it out on YouTube because we have a video version, as well as on letstalksupplychain.com. And it is episode 282. What else is happening? Well, we've got some live events coming up. So if you joined us for the Intermodal Summit Day 1 last Thursday at 2 p.m., we've got Day 2 happening this Thursday at 2 p.m. We've got Lars Jensen, we've got Larry, and myself. I am hosting this event, and we're going to be talking about intermodal trends and insights. And this is in the lead up to Expo. So the Intermodal Association of North America is putting on a conference in September in Long Beach called Expo, talking all about intermodal. They bring everybody together in the intermodal industry, and this is a lead up to it. So if you want to see what you're going to learn at Expo, you definitely want to attend this event. It's called Insider Insights into Intermodal. We're going to go live at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Now, and then we've got obviously LogTech Live happening on Friday. But just a reminder, if we've got live events happening, go to the events page and click attend. Because if you can't click or if you can't attend live and in person, that's okay. As long as you click the attend button, you're going to get the link from me afterwards so that you can go and watch it. So it's something that you're interested in, but the timing doesn't quite work. Still click the attend button and we'll make it as easy as possible for you to find it later on. What else is happening? We've got Blended. So I haven't talked about Blended in just a little while. Obviously, we've got the Blended podcast. We've got a brand new episode coming out this Wednesday about Asian discrimination. And this was a great conversation, really talking about the history and diving into So many things that are happening within that community right now. So wait for it because it's coming out on Wednesday, but you can go and subscribe to the Blended podcast on Apple and Spotify so you don't miss an episode. We've also got the Blended Pledge. So we're going to be giving away our first grant this month, and we're super excited to announce it. So go and follow our page, and you'll be the first to know once we have given away that grant. Plus, we're looking for donations. We want to help as many diverse voices as possible say yes to speaking engagements. So, AJ, they're asking for the link in the comments for Blended Podcast as well as the Blended page. If you can put that in that. Thank you, Bayram, for bringing that up and for joining us. All right. So that's it from me. I am going to bring up our guest for today. Hello, Audrey. Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm good. Speaking of Blended, if everyone goes and follows the page, I'll reach my little micro goal of 500 followers by September 21st. So,
I love that. I love that. So Audrey and I have been frantically inviting connections to follow the page because we need to reach as many people as possible. So they know about us and that they know that grants are available so they can say yes to speaking engagements.
Yeah.
But also, so we can get more donations and we can help, more people and that kind of thing.
More.
So
yeah.
And I love that you have a micro goal and you're shouting it out and asking people to help.
Well, if you don't ask, you don't get sometimes. So
that is so true. Okay, so for anybody that doesn't know you, Audrey, please introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Audrey Ross. I'm based here in Toronto, Canada. I'm the Import and Export Compliance Manager at Orchard Custom Beauty, which is an award-winning business-to-business private labeling company specializing in beauty tools, cosmetics, and bath accessories. So I spend my day. What else? I don't know. Just enjoying the summer so far, and
you eat, breathe, and live supply chain.
Yeah.
That's why we're hashtag trade besties, and we're a part of the trade squad. Just saying.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So I want to say hi to Mahmood over on my personal LinkedIn page. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, what are we talking about today? Oh, so you and I went to visit Lisa Fenton last week at her cottage, and we spent some time talking a little bit about life, a little bit about supply chain. I do have a picture. So why don't you tell everybody what we got into while I find this picture, and then we can talk more about
that. We had a super fun summer day in Toronto. So we went out a little bit in the country for us. And visited Lisa at her trailer. We ate really well. I don't know if you can see, like, Lisa's like gourmet, like carved out the little pineapple there, and so I ate super well. I hit up a little aquatics class with her in the morning. We did some paddle boarding, a lot of fun in the sun, and great conversation, and really great to spend time with someone who, I think I'd met in. When did we meet her? Like 2018 or something like that at a conference. And then we became friends during the pandemic through that happy hour chat. And, just great connection. So really, really good day. And thanks to Lisa for, like, she's the hostess with the mostest. So
with the mostest.
Yeah,
we were well taken care of.
Yeah.
So just wanted to give a shout out for Lisa because we really appreciate that. And we had some fun.
Yeah.
Just chilling out and, getting to know each other. That's what summer is all about. And I went to Alicia Keys on Sunday. Fabulous concert. Just want to give her a shout out as well because she put on a really, really, really great show and really enjoyed that as well.
And everybody needs to listen to her new song because you played it for me and I was like, one, I haven't really heard this, and two, it's so good. So everybody has to check out Alicia Keys if you don't already know who she is.
Yes. So the song that she's referring to is called Underdog. And honestly, she didn't play it till the end, so I wasn't sure if she was going to play it. It is a fabulous song, just talking about the underdog. Listen to the words. Love that song. So anyways, now we got to get to the poll of the week. What did we ask you? Oh, so the question that we asked you was, what's your virtual meeting personality? So 49% of you said full-faced and ready to go. That percentage is shocking. 27% said no camera, hiding out. 12% said present but distracted. 11% said send me an email instead. So I am probably all of these on a different day. or all at the same time, because I can be full faced and ready to go, but I can also be present but distracted.
Mhm.
And sometimes I can be in a meeting and I'm like, this could have been sent in an email.
Yes.
So what's yours?
I think I selected full face and ready to go. Because if, but it depends on who I'm meeting with, right? Like when you're meeting with a customer, depends on who you're meeting with. If I'm doing a webinar or something like that, then it's different. But generally, like my coworkers, it was like, we'd start on video and then it would sort of drop off. So unless we were with a customer, it's like if it's just us, especially some of us have worked with each other for like 10 years. So, we can have the compassion for like, we're tired, we're working hard, and you know what my face looks like, so we're fine.
So there's a couple of things about this. One, I was talking to a client the other day and they were talking about how their company has made it not mandatory to be on camera. Mm-hmm. It's only as you feel it. So you can turn on the camera if you want, you can turn off the camera. So there's just no pressure. I think sometimes there's some pressure around this camera, no camera. I think the other thing too is if you're on a call with somebody and they cannot share their video for whatever reason, they really don't need to explain it to you. And don't give them a hard time. Just let it be what it is. And, the universe will come back around and you'll be able to either meet in person or talk on camera. And so I think it's really important to really point some of those out. Michael in the comments said he's full-faced and ready to go, except for my no camera Friday practice, which I do like, because Fridays are a day that I do like to take off as well. And I'm not always full-faced and camera ready. Audrey said, I'm fortunate that we have a choice to either have our camera on or off. It takes a lot of bandwidth to run presentations while having people with their cameras on. That is also really true as well. And then Leah says, boy, that's loaded. I am very easily distracted in virtual meetings. So in order to stay plugged in, I take notes constantly, which means when the camera is on, you get a great view of my forehead and hairline.
That was a good comment. I love that.
Stay tuned for our poll this week. I think you guys are going to love it. It's all about Incoterms. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek on that. So I think that's going to be fun.
The trade nerds are going to descend on your poll.
The trade nerds are definitely going to. Does that mean you're going to be commenting?
Yeah. I'll probably live in that poll for like 2 days of like, who's commenting what? Which Incoterm is correct.
You're going to be watching Thoughts and Coffee next week because you're going to be like, I really want to know the results of this. And then Bayram says, in this time, we suffered from Zoom fatigue. We absolutely did. And that's the reason why we need to give people grace. All right, let's talk about our first article. So this article is talking about the steamship lines, but it's interesting because it's talking about it from a stock perspective. It's not necessarily like it's giving us all the stats and numbers around what is happening in the container industry. They're talking about the demand continues to from China remains strong. I mean, duh, it's peak season, right? It's going to be strong from now until the end of the year. That's one of the things that if you watch my BBC interview from last week, I forgot to mention was that yes, demand remains strong because it's peak season and we're leading up to holiday.
Yeah.
But they're also saying that manufacturing continues to recover. That was another thing that I pointed out on that interview was that with that Hershey example, which we're going to dive a little bit deeper into next week with Laura Ciceri on Thoughts and Coffee, because Hershey has said, we're not going to have Halloween candy potentially because we're not ready to move our manufacturing from full bar candy into Halloween candy. And that's something we'll get into. But they're also talking in this article that there's supply chain chaos still, but steamship lines are chartering and buying vessels at a huge rate so that we can get more capacity. There's a lot of really great stats and charts in this if you're taking a look at ocean freight. So Audrey, let's take this minute to for you to give us kind of a glimpse into what you're seeing on the ocean freight side, because this gives us a different perspective from the stock perspective and how Zim and Matson and all of the steamship lines are being overvalued or undervalued. Anyways, read it. But Audrey, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen prices coming down, which is nice change. I was quite hesitant when we were talking about internal pricing back in the spring, because you just kind of worried, like, as we got closer into, sort of what a lot of us consider peak season, right? That sort of July, August, September, October, fulfilling, the massive sort of holiday shopping events here in North America and in Europe. And so it's nice to see some of the pricing come down. It's also been a lot more stable. So when I'm going to, I'm a smaller shipper, so I tend to live in spot. But it's like it's sort of been consistently, 13.5, 13.5, or 12.2 or something like that, 12,200. So that makes it a little bit easier because it's less work to kind of go back and forth or to shop. And then the consistency has been there too. We haven't seen as many blank sailings or forced kind of pauses. There's still the odd like day delay, and which you're like, oh, 2 days delay, no problem, keep it moving. Because you got so used to like, oh, it's a blank sailing. Oh, we've rolled your container like 3 times. Last year. It was brutal. And then now it's just some of the more, it's starting to go back to some more regional issues. So I'm dealing a ton with stuff coming into Canada between the rail terminals in Toronto and Montreal. The situation is backing it up at Vancouver. I had something specifically that was supposed to come off the vessel on August 7th. I just got an update this morning, August 29th. So it hasn't improved.
Come off the vessel?
It's not going to come off the vessel. It's in Vancouver. It's having like a little scenic view of Vancouver for a month. And then when it comes off, it still has rail dwell. So there could still be 8 to 10 days of rail dwell. And then it has to get on the rail and come to Toronto, where Toronto, I have something that has been at the rail terminal since like August 2nd. What day is it today? August 15th. Is it in my warehouse? No. Is that stupid warehouse like terminal around the corner from my office? Yes, but you can't get it. So it's just, Canada's just a little hot mess right now. And then, so dealing with that, and then dealing with other little, like it's summer in Europe. They've had an extended heat wave. It's been a bit slower. So you're seeing sort of more of like a congested feel in the offloading, but otherwise it's still clicking along. Right. And it's not extreme delays. It's just sort of like, well, it's August. It's just a little slower. So just depending on where you're shipping, you could be seeing little things like that. But it has sort of gone back to being a bit more regional. And we've lost a lot of the chaos at Los Angeles and New York. Right. It's sort of more, again, that congestion feeling, like it's not moving like super fast and seamless, but it's also not what we were seeing several months ago with just complete backups and like the port full of vessels waiting. That's Vancouver.
But so now that's Vancouver. I was gonna say we've stopped the disruptions overseas, and then at LA and Long Beach. So just avoid Vancouver, people. I think we need to make that a hashtag.
Yeah, or just I said come first.
22 days for it to sit there is a really long time. And those were some of the numbers that we were seeing in LA and Long Beach. And now it's moved to Vancouver. But this was one of my points last week in that interview, was that we need some relief. So one of the questions I was supposed to be asked was around the lowering demand.
Right.
And my response to that was, it's not a bad thing. Supply chains need that relief to be able to recover. And we're seeing it in a variety of different ways, right? The disruptions were in different places a few months ago, and now they're in other places now. Yeah. And it's because it's a domino effect in a variety of different ways, and people are just sort of trying to catch up. So appreciate that update and, what you're going through. I mean, Rhonda says you've got a great attitude considering, and it's just nice to know about what you're going through for other supply chain professionals that are going through the same thing, and just kind of like, what do I do? Right. I do want to give a shout out to Hitesh on my personal LinkedIn. He says, present but distracted, hashtag love what you do. So I thought that was really, really funny. All right. Well, the next one we're going to be talking about is the supply chains to admire. So Rhonda had asked me how you spell her name. It's Lora, and then last name Cecere for Laura Cecere. Now, she comes up with the supply chains to admire every single year.
Yeah.
It's 62 pages of in depth and analysis on companies in a variety of different industries and how they are handling their supply chains. So you're going to hear from some of those people at Imagine. So Imagine is Laura's conference. It's happening September 6th through 8th in Washington. I'm going to be in person and emceeing the digital side of the event. If you can't make it in person, there is a digital side of the event. And we are going to be interviewing some of the companies from this particular supply chains to admire list. And she talks about supply chain excellence and what that actually means. She goes really in depth on how she actually picks the companies to watch, and even does a bit of a comparison to Gartner. And so definitely something to check out. There's also some recommendations for your supply chains as well. She goes in depth. I think there's like 10 recommendations. And so what did you think about this, Audrey? I mean, for you, you're probably reading a variety of different things within this particular guide. And then you're looking at your particular vertical and going, these are kind of the things that either we're doing right, maybe doing not wrong, but maybe need to think about it differently.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of comments that she makes, and it's worth going through and sitting with the in-depth report and the details and looking at the company selected for sure. But she just like two small points that she talked about, maybe not small, but like two things that stuck out for me. That's the best way to put it. On one of the sections, she talks about operating margin versus total cost. And we're starting to see this sort of talk of recession, talk of the pricing coming down, talk of inflation, right? There's just massive inflation conversation. And she has this sort of suggestion of a focus on cost throws the supply chain out of balance, because that can just be, you're trying to compensate, maybe not mindfully. And in contrast, an organizational focus on margin helps organizations to align and channel programs in sort of a different way. And the other point that she talks about that I think is worth mentioning is where she says that improvement, driving higher levels of improvement by focusing on cross-functional process development and organizational alignment. And I think that's critical in this time around how we've been like, okay, there's a lot of inflation, there's a lot of costs, there's a lot of inventory, there's a lot of stuff to manage. We're all trying to utilize digital tools. Some of us are newer to that than others. Mm-hmm. And there's all this talk of AI, robotics, automation. But to run a well thought of and designed supply chain, it is your teams, and it's not your supply chain team alone in a silo. And I know Gary Newberry and I have talked about this a lot. It's how you're communicating internally. It's, are we all following the same goals? There's like supply chains working away like this, accounting's working away like that, sales is doing like, completely veered off the road here. So it's like, how are you doing that internally? And then as I had a new person start in June. And as I'm explaining how we do things, I'm like, this is not as sort of straightforward for a new person as you might like it to be. And I've been with the company a while, so there's things that come more easily to me because I've been part of it for a long time. But how do you integrate that next generation or your new hires if it's become very clunky, the mechanisms of how you make stuff work? So that focus that she talks about, that alignment, that focusing on your infrastructure and process internally is what's going to help you realize everyone will be on the same page with the same goal. You're going to have an increased margin because you have less little mistakes or less of people like being like, well, I don't really understand how this works, like that disorganization factor. So I thought that was just, even if you read that page long, critical page. So, but the report is like so good. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your insights. Now, Bayram made a comment about a weekly episode for European supply chain. So I've got a couple of comments on this. One is we do post an article about Europe European supply chains on the Let's Talk Supply Chain social media at
Yeah.
least once a week, but I am looking for a franchisee in Europe right now. And so if anybody knows anybody, we're looking for a franchisee for Let's Talk Supply Chain Europe. So Bayram, I'm working on it. It's coming. But in the meantime, we are posting articles about European supply chains as
Yeah.
well. All right. So our last article here is about air freight. So we started off the conversation talking about ocean freight. Then we moved to supply chains to admire and the recommendations of what you should be looking for in your supply chains. And now we're talking about air freight. Because air freight really is that critical component. It's the component that really took a step inwards when we didn't have the capacity for ocean freight. And so air freight has been used way more, I think, over the last couple of years than it traditionally has. However, we're only operating at about 80% on the passenger flights. And so that actually does reduce some capacity.
Yeah.
But there's more capacity on vessels right now. And so air freight isn't being used as much. But again, we are in peak season. The good news is that the air freight rates have come down from double digits, which I think is really good. And Audrey's going to be very happy about that. And so, Audrey, talk to us a little bit about how you decide on ocean freight versus air freight and how, this news is kind of impacting what you do.
For sure. I think for us, we, as we're selling into retailers, so the demand or the orders are sort of coming externally. And so we have very specific timing for a lot of our projects that we have to meet. We do a lot of promotions and like I had mentioned earlier, this holiday shopping milestone season is pretty much upon us. So if you aren't having stuff in store or at warehouses, by September, it's really not going to get in store for Halloween, for those end of the year holidays. And we tend to choose air freight. It's very expensive. And it's not just cost expensive, it's carbon expensive. We've seen a lot of reports lately about, celebrities and private jets. But I think we can't kind of tuck away the fact that cargo, also has that emission factor that we have to consider. Right now, we've kind of looked at the kind of programs that we're launching or have very firm due dates on, and looking at that situation in Vancouver, and just the uncertainty of how, if you have something for inventory that you're like, yeah, if it comes in the store, not, if it comes in the warehouse October, November, and like, it's fine. It can bear that uncertainty of timing. But when you have, it's like, if it's not at this warehouse by October 1st, like it's canceled. So we chose air freight for some of those items, and and luckily, it's not quite. September is usually a bit higher cost because Apple usually launches a product, so it takes up all the space. And November, of course, as people are doing their sort of shopping milestone, courier stuff, that tends to pull some capacity as well. So we're doing it now, so it's a little less expensive than it was. It is a tool that you have to factor in because, as I just mentioned, margin, it's like, it does not help your margin at those kinds of costs. It's not great for heavy stuff. And the other way we use it is sometimes where we have inputs that are producing a finished good later, we might airship the inputs because they're a lot lighter, to accelerate the production time if that fits. So there's a lot of strategies around it. That have to be considered, but
and good news that the prices are coming down. I mean, we'll see what happens in Q4 when everybody rushes.
Yeah, if they go back to that sort of fluctuation, like honestly, in 2019, I could peg it. It was like September was Apple launch. It was a $10 per kilogram month. November was like, don't do it because you can't even get the space, and it's definitely like $12.45 per kilogram US dollars, right? If you do it other times, it's like, it's usually around $4.75, $5.25, depending on what service you're using, kind of thing. So
amazing insights. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Now, before we go, I just want to quickly just go over some of the events that we have coming up and where I'm going to be. So we've got Intermodal Summit. That one's coming up on Thursday. Oh, that's day one, but day two is coming up on Thursday. Of course, we've got Special Delivery with Far Eye. That's the last Thursday of every month. We've got Imagine in Washington, which is the one that I had mentioned with Laura Ciceri. Home Delivery World. I'm going to be in Philadelphia at the end of this month, and I think I'm going to be on stage a couple of times. We're also going to be recording some podcast episodes. Of course, we've got Manifest in January. action items with DC Shvigola. LogTech is happening this Friday, and No Bullshipping with Hope White is happening at the end of the month. And then, of course, the beginning of November, I'm going to be at Engage with Procurement Foundry, and super excited about all of that. Anyways, that's it from us today. Audrey, it's been a pleasure. And everybody in the audience, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks for all your comments and questions and all of that. And so we'll see you next week where I have Laura Ciceri coming on the show. And she's going to be talking all about Imagine. She's also going to be talking about the supply chains to admire in a little bit more depth. Plus, she's got all sorts of amazing insights coming out of her research for the conference that's coming up in September. So can't wait to see you next Tuesday. Thank you all for tuning in. And thanks, Audrey.
Thanks.